Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful that you can join us for another session.
Sure.
And we are very lucky to have our special guest, Phoenix LeFae. Phoenix started her journey in the world of witchcraft in 1993 when her athame was a wooden-handled butter knife stolen from her mom's kitchen.
That was cool.
Her love of magic and mystery had led her down many paths, lineages, and traditions. She is an initiate in the Reclaiming Tradition of Witchcraft, the Avalon Druid Order, and Gardnerian Wicca. Phoenix has written several books, including What is Remembered Lives, A Witch's Guide to Creating and Performing Rituals, Witches, Heretics, and Warrior Woman, and more. She's a professional witch and the owner of an esoteric goddess shop, Milk and Honey. And we'll put all those links of where you can find her, and we'll get the links from you at the end of where they can find you. So welcome.
Yeah, so nice.
Thank you.
So nice to have you.
Nice to be here.
Yes.
So yeah, it intrigued me because I've always been drawn into kind of the witchcraft, Wiccan kind of way of living. And so it was really exciting when I stumbled across you, and I was like, oh, I feel like she needs to be on here and talk about some of that with our listeners.
Yeah, you bet, because we want to know.
Yeah.
Yes, we want to know more about it too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. Is there a specific sort of angle that is best to start with?
We're open to whatever you feel drawn to tell or share with us would be great. Maybe a little bit of your history, how you kind of got doing what you're doing and writing the books and sharing knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't raised with any specific organized religion. So, my when we were kids and you had to do like the thing at school, like, what's your religious background? And my mom was like, I don't know, I guess we're Protestant, so, but we didn't go to church, and I didn't really have a relationship with the Christian God in any way, shape, or form. And in my early teens, I sort of hit a rough patch, like a lot of adolescents do. Growing up is hard. And I thought to myself, maybe if I had religion or some sort of higher power that I could give this to or ask for help with, maybe this wouldn't feel so hard. So that sort of started my spiritual journey, and that was at 15. And I started reading books. We lived across the street from a Catholic church, so I would go to Catholic mass, and I loved all the censer with the incense and the genuflecting and the holy. I loved all that stuff. But then the minister or the priest would start speaking, and then I was like, okay, this isn't it.
I like the ritual. I don't like the rest.
Exactly. Yeah. So I read a lot of books. The mid 90s was a really good time for this to happen because there was sort of this explosion of the New Age movement, and the goddess worship movement became much more accessible. And this is still like pre-internet. And even once the internet was more available, I didn't have internet. I am a late acceptor of technology.
That's okay, lots are.
But one day I stumbled across a book about witchcraft, and it was in a bookstore. I picked it up, and it talked about the earth and the goddess and being connected to nature. And all of a sudden it was like all these things I already knew and felt in my soul, someone else had given labels to, and someone else had named as religion, and someone else had said, this is how you do it, this is how you practice, quote unquote, whatever this thing is. And that was it. I got tarot cards, I got all the books I could find. I'm very lucky where I live. There is a quite vibrant community of witches in this area. And so back in the day, they would put on public ritual. So at 16, I attended my first public ritual, and I was like, there was 100 witches. We sang, we chanted, we honored the winter solstice together. It was amazing. And that was it. Like, and I'm a learner. I'm a spiritual seeker. I'm constantly wanting to learn more and figure out why and how this developed and who originated this thought, so it's been 30 years, frighteningly enough. It's been 30 years since then. And I'm just continuing to seek and learn. And that's how it started.
That's that's amazing. And I think that's so true, because I remember as a young kid going to the library all the time and like, looking all the stuff and what I could find out about witchcraft, right? Because it intrigued me, and I've always had that calling. So yeah, you're right. Once you
Yeah.
start reading it, it makes sense. It's like, oh, right.
She also grew up in a house where I was doing tea leaf readings and things like that.
Oh yeah.
Well, and she was doing that, and her friends would come over when they were younger, and so it sort of led them down that road, I guess,
Yeah.
about the possibilities of what spirituality can bring towards you and what it can give you, and it's sort of, so we too are learners. We like to, we're grabbing at everything we possibly can on the spiritual side, to strengthen us and make us grow too. So thank you again for what you're teaching us today.
And
yeah, I think it's especially important for women because a lot of the mainstream spiritual culture, women are secondary. And it can be, especially for, modern women and the feminist movement and everything that's changed so much, it can be really irritating to look out at the spiritual opportunities and just see so much masculine energy. It's like it kind of pisses me off, to be honest. And so with witchcraft and goddess worship, that sort of turns it on its head, and it's very empowering for, especially for young women.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with your books, like, you were called to write them, or you just had all this knowledge and wealth of information you wanted to share with people?
I think it's a little bit of both. I went to a huge pagan conference that used to happen in San Jose, California, and there would be like 2,000 witches and pagans that would attend this thing. Wow. And Llewellyn is a publisher of esoteric books, right? And they would have workshops about like how to get published, and then they would have these pitch sessions where you could go and meet with an editor and pitch your idea, and if they liked it, they would tell you how to follow up and work with them. So I with very much courage and inspiration from my friends, and maybe even a shot of whiskey before I went to this pitch session, and I had this idea about, it was for the book What Is Remembered Lives. That was my first book, and it was just about how the gods, ancestors, spirits of the land, fairy beings, all of these entities, working with them is all kind of the same process. It doesn't have to be really complicated. The way you might approach your ancestors is the same way you might approach a fairy beings, for example. And so I thought, that having a book to sort of express all of that is something that didn't exist at that point. So I pitched my idea, and I actually met with the head of acquisitions. I didn't know it at the time, but he was the big boss, and he liked my idea and asked how long it would take me to write it. And that's it. I've written 5 books since then. I just keep doing it.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So can you explain to us and maybe our listeners, like, a little bit about your practice or ritual or those kind of things?
Yeah, so I have a lot of my background is in the reclaiming tradition of witchcraft, and honestly, that's just because that's what was available to me at the time, right? When I went to that first public ritual at 16, that was put on by the reclaiming tradition, and sort of the head or the main name that people know connected to reclaiming is Starhawk. So I don't know if you're familiar with that person or not, but she's written a lot of books, and she's very involved in permaculture and earth-based practices. So that's kind of my growing up in witchcraft, was through that tradition. And a lot of that is nature-based and ecstatic. So a lot of singing, a lot of dancing and drumming, a lot of being outside and connecting with nature and having relationship with nature. And that's really informed my practice. I've dabbled in a few other ways. Like I practiced druidry for a little while. That felt too restrictive for me. Like, there's a lot of rules and liturgy and things you're supposed to do, and I'm not really that guy, so it didn't quite work for me. And I'm initiated into a Wiccan tradition, which again has very specific liturgy and rules and ways you're supposed to do things. And I appreciate that now that I've gotten older. Like, I understand how liturgy can actually be very beneficial. But at my heart, like, I'm a wild anarchist and I want to be outside singing and dancing and playing a drum. So a lot of my practice is influenced by that, by being connected to the world, being connected to nature. A lot of my personal practice is related to beauty and how awe and wonder are so magical and so vital to being human. And I feel that a lot of modern culture's problems are related to the fact that we are disconnected from the awe and wonder and beauty in the world. And if we just allowed ourselves to reawaken to that, if we just allowed space to look outside and be awestruck by a butterfly or a bird or a flower, like if everyone on the planet could just have that moment of reconnecting to awe, climate change would go away, pillaging the earth for resources would go away. Like, all of a sudden it would be like, oh right, this place is amazing, we should take care of it. So that's a lot of my personal practice is related to that. And I ritualize that. I have celebrations that I do, and I have ceremonies that I perform, and I cast spells, and so there's the action of that, but at the heart of it, it is about the nature and the earth and having a relationship with it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love the outdoors too, and what you can do with it.
Yeah.
I think we're of the mind where you look into a tree and you see everything else in it, sort of thing. It's not just the tree you're looking at. So you're really going into the depth of things, which is so beautiful because you find the love of nature through that.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 100%. You worded it very well.
Thank you.
We need to find that bliss that's out there.
Yeah.
It's right in front of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, we've become such a culture now that it's like we're wearing blinders all the time.
Yeah.
Where we're going. First of all, we're going in such a fast pace.
Yeah.
We can't even appreciate the journey there. We can't appreciate being present in the moment when we get there and journey home, right? And like you said, coming back to nature and that awe
and being grateful for what you're seeing in front of you. I think that's another thing that I think it's slowly catching on. People are becoming more grateful for what's in front of them, but we still got a long way to go.
Yeah. Gratitude is such a simple practice, but it's so profound and powerful. And, there's been times I have a generalized anxiety. So occasionally that takes over and I am not in a great place mentally with my mental health. And one of those times my mom was like, start a gratitude journal. And I was like, gratitude journal, that's not going to help. But then I did it because I was really desperate for anything to work. And it took a few days. It took probably a week. And some of my gratitude journal entries are so snarky and bratty. Like they just are. But like, just remembering every day to connect with something that you have gratitude for is immensely powerful. It's so simple, and yet we just easily forget. It can so easily be set aside.
Yeah, it's so true. I do a gratitude journal as well. And you're right, because I'm the same. If I'm having some insecurities and stuff, it depends on your day, what you reflect on and what you're grateful for. But it also makes me be present in moments when I'm somewhere and be able to be like, hey, I'm really grateful that tree's so beautiful. And wow, look at the birds. And it brings more attention to it, I think.
It does.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And I love, the thing that I was really intrigued, I've seen some TikToks and some different things about spells and things like that, and, some negative connotation towards it. And it's like, people don't realize that the words that they're speaking every day when they're making birthdays, the happy birthday song, all of that is just spells.
Absolutely.
Just put such a negative connotation. It kind of pisses me off, actually.
It's not necessary, but it's there, right? And I think that's what's so good about you is you're telling people about how it's not a negative thing and how it's a positive reaction to what we can do in this world to make it better for everyone.
Yeah.
Another reason we're grateful for you today.
Yeah.
And
thanks. The elementals that you're bringing into it too, because I love that wonder of fairies and that elemental world, right? Because it's so
Magical.
Magical, yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and all of this should appeal to our younger selves. Like any spiritual practice that we take on or dabble in or practice, like it really should appeal to that younger part of ourselves, you know. And most kids have memories of playing outside, making mud pies, cutting leaves and flowers and making potions in the backyard. Like most kids have memories like that. And it's just when they were open to the wonder of the world around them and willing to pretend that they had more power than humans have power. They actually do. We actually do have that power. And being connected to that child self and getting our hands dirty and being in the mud, like that's what it's all about.
Yes.
That's the charm of it. Yeah. Yeah. And words have power, like you said. Like we speak things into existence all the time, and having awareness of how powerful our words are, it can change your life.
Yes. Yeah. In a moment.
Yeah.
In a moment.
Absolutely.
And
it's so funny to me because I think that like through like more of an earth-based religion and the other religions, there's so many similarities between the rituals and the things that we're putting out there. We're praying to a higher being, you know. I mean, it doesn't work for everybody, but if somebody was wanting to get into this type of religion, how would you suggest they go about starting?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's, you know, just like with the way I sort of explain it, you know, Christianity has this umbrella, and under the umbrella is like Baptist and Protestant and Catholic and all these different flavors of Christianity. And the same is true with witchcraft and paganism. There's lots of different flavors of how you can practice. And some of those flavors are very open. And what if you say you're a witch, that's all it takes, right? and some of those flavors are a little bit more specific in how the practices work. So, you know, the first step, honestly, is to start researching. You know, do a little Google search, see what different threads are available out there, because there is such a wide range that if you read about one specific tradition and you feel like, oh, that's not for me, that doesn't mean that the whole system isn't for you. It's just that one flavor. You might not like chocolate. You might prefer strawberry, you know? So I think a little bit of research is really a good first step. And there's a lot of great books out there. There's a lot of great authors out there. There's also, now that we're kind of in this post-COVID world, I always get nervous saying that out loud. But events are starting to happen again, you know? So there's pagan conferences that happen all over the US, and there are pagan pride days, and there are public rituals and workshops and things being put on. And those things are still happening online too. But if you have the opportunity to go to an event, you have the opportunity to dabble in those different flavors, because a lot of those big community events have representatives from different traditions. Beautiful. So you can sort of figure out like, okay, these aren't really my people, but these are totally my people. And it gives you a good opportunity, you know, to figure out what kind of system might work best for you.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. I just recently got to partake in sort of a Beltane ritual.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. Like, I really loved it because we did like dance. What was a makeshift, because it was indoors, makeshift fire, but dancing around and holding hands and casting the circle. Like, it was amazing energy that was brought in, and it was all women. So it was very powerful.
Nice.
So I loved that thing. It inspired me just to, I need to dig further. I need to
right. Yeah.
Need to know more,
because sometimes it's hard to find those things, right? I mean, much as society is opening up to a lot of different beliefs, they're still closed-minded about so many.
Yeah. And I live in a very progressive bubble, and I've lived in this part of the world most of my life. So I know I'm very spoiled and very lucky in that way. You know, I know that that's not true. Even in the United States, there are places where it's still not really safe to be out of the broom closet, so to speak, you know? So that can be difficult, but, you know, because of COVID, really, like the bonus of all going through that process is a lot of us recognized that doing things online was possible. You know, and I teach a lot of classes, and I was doing classes all through lockdown, and I'm still doing online classes because I have so many people who aren't local, who are like, oh, please don't stop doing online classes or I won't get to see you anymore. So,
Right.
there are still online opportunities for sure.
So what kind of classes do you teach then?
Yeah, I teach a class I call Intro to Witchcraft, which is sort of getting your feet wet and figuring out the basics of what a modern witchcraft practice looks like. I teach classes on spell crafting, on reading tarot cards. And if I also do these things called goddess gatherings, where it's we feature a different goddess from a different part of the world every gathering. We do a little history lesson, a little culture lesson, and then we do a ritual for that goddess. So that, stuff like that.
That's fun. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun. And I read on your website you do candle services as well. Can you explain?
I do. Yeah, so candles are my favorite type of spell work because they're very obvious, right? Like you can see the flame and know there's energy happening for you. So I offer a candle ministry or a candle service for my clients, where I create, what's the word I want? It just escaped my head.
Okay,
custom. I make a custom. I use the big glass encased candles, and I decorate the outside based on the desire of my client. And I use herbs and oils to infuse the wax, and then I burn the candle. And then when it's done burning, I'll do a divination on the glass and send a little email report on how it burned and what it looks like and some things to pay attention to.
Beautiful. Wow.
Yeah.
Very nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
It's fun.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've got your fingers into a lot, because I know you do retreats and you do courses and you do these candle services and you do tarot readings as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. When I was like 17, back when you had to look in the paper for a job,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I wish that I could open the paper and there would be the job for a priestess, and that could be my job. Like, that's what I want. And my husband and I were talking about this just a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, you created the job priestess. And I was like, oh my God, I did. That's what I'm doing. I own a little shop. I do tarot readings. I teach about witchcraft. Like I am so blessed and honored to get to do the work that I do. Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice to do that and to give back and to give this information, which is what we love about this podcast so much, is we can talk to so many different and interesting people and share this wealth of information out with other people
and inspire other people, like, because they don't know what's going on. And so the inspiration that you're giving today, it will teach somebody else, like you said, being young and not knowing their course of where they want to go. Like, you're helping them too to find something to believe in. And nowadays, I think that's so important with these young people. They need something else, right? So good for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree.
We've always wanted to have an esoteric store as well, but we haven't wished that into it yet.
Yeah, we're slowly doing the movement.
Yeah, it all happened. It was always a dream, but it was like that fantasy dream. Like, that's not a real dream. That's just the dream, and then the story of how it all came to be is quite magical. It just happened. It like fell into my lap. It was.
What's the story? Can you share the story with us?
I can. Okay, so it was 2015, and this little shop is called Milk and Honey, and it's been in existence since 1996. So it's been around for a long time, and it was a shop that I've shopped at for a very long time to get, my little goddess charms and witchy supplies. And in 2015, I actually went to Australia to teach at a witch camp. And before I left, the shop owners, the previous owners, sent an email to their base, and they were like, hey, we're divorcing, and part of our process of separation is to sell the business. And we wanted to tell our loyal customers first to see if any of you might be interested in taking on the reins. And like 4 people forwarded me this email. Oh, Phoenix, you should do this. You should do this. And I was like, yeah, because I have bad credit and no savings. So yeah, like that's totally going to happen. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I went to Australia, and I said to myself, okay, when I get home, if it's still for sale, I'll see. I'll just ask questions. So I go to Australia and I'm at dinner the night before the retreat starts. And there's another American there who I know who used to live in the Bay Area of California, and her and I are talking, and I'm telling her about Milk and Honey going for sale, and she takes this ring off, a garnet ring, and she hands it to me and says, "Put this on." So I put it on and it fits. And she said, "This ring is from Milk and Honey. The current owner is my best friend,
Wow.
and she gave me this ring as a magical spell I was working. It worked for me, and now I'm giving it to you so that this manifests for you." And I was like, okay, this is a good sign. So I get home from Australia and I email the previous owner and I was like, "Hey, I don't know that I can make this happen, but it keeps coming up. Can we have a conversation?" And she said, "The sale fell through this morning. The shop is still available. Let's talk." So all of this is happening. I'm starting to freak out. I email everyone I know, and I said in this email, "You want to help me make a dream come true? Like, can you give me a loan? Can you be my business partner? Can you help me crowdsource? Like, how can we make this happen?" Like, literally, I emailed everyone I knew. Because again, bad credit, no savings. And one person who was a student of mine emailed me back. She said, "I'm actually very wealthy. I don't talk about it openly because I don't want to make it a big deal, but I will give you the loan for the full amount that you need."
Wow.
So just like that. So that was in Easter in 2015. And at the end of June, the shop was mine.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it just was
Goosebumps hearing
Good
it.
story. Yeah, it's a very good
it was
story.
all divine and magical. It was obviously meant to be. It's just, and since then where I live, we've had floods, we've had fires, we've had a pandemic, and we're still going strong. So it's absolutely a divine opportunity that fell in my lap.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way when things happen so magically like that, right?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah,
It's true.
that's
It's true.
amazing. So what kind of stuff do you sell in the store?
We sell books and tarot cards. We have a ton of stones and crystals and a lot of jewelry. I try to focus on women artists and local women artists. So we have a lot of jewelry created by local women artists and artwork and things like that. We also have body care products, handmade soaps and incenses and all candles, all that kinds of fun stuff.
Oh, sounds amazing. Well, if I'm ever in the area.
Yeah, let me know.
I'll be definitely coming in.
Where is it?
You're in San Francisco, right?
I'm about an hour north of San Francisco. I'm in a little town called Sebastopol.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where Milk and Honey is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're in Sonoma County, so we get a lot of like wine tourism happening around here.
Nice.
But yeah.
Well, that's amazing.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
awesome.
and I look forward to reading some of your books. I haven't yet, but I am a voracious reader, so
Nice.
She is that.
I will be doing that, and yeah, look forward to that. So
Nice.
this intrigue, like I said, this intrigues me a little bit. I do my own sort of solitary practice, so
Yeah.
it was kind of cool getting to do a ritual with other people that are like-minded, right? And
Yeah.
then I was really excited because this lady also holds monthly ceremonies and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's just nice that there's somewhere you can go to practice this and be with people, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is solitary. Like our spiritual life is a very solitary thing. It's very individual, but it is nice to go and be with like-minded people and have that deepening experience that you can really only have with community. It's very special.
I think that's so true. Like even with them growing up in that, I've always been I was a hippie. What can I say?
Yeah.
And, so I mean, I was so into the earth, like way back in the 70s and things like that when they were still really little. And so yes, it is a very personal thing. And anything I was trying to practice way back then in the 70s, a lot of people, unless you were a hippie,
right,
didn't understand the flow of where you wanted to go and what you wanted to do and what your beliefs were, right?
Yeah.
So, it's nice to talk about to people like yourself, where we can bring it out into the open a little more.
Yeah.
People can really grasp a hold of it and understand how truly wonderful this really is in
Yeah.
all aspects, right? So thank you for that too. It's
Mm,
any kind of learning is good stuff.
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
side of ourselves, because it can be so deep.
Yes.
We need the deepness with it too, so we understand, but we also, like you said, need the community to open us up and get
Yeah.
us there, right? So this is what we're trying to do with this
Yeah.
podcast is hopefully bring enough people in to follow their dreams and
Yeah.
get what they're looking for, you know.
That's lovely.
Yeah. Bring the magic back, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with you. I think the more magic we can find in everyday life, regardless of your religion or your belief
Yep.
practices,
Yep.
I think you're right. We're going to create this better world to live in because we are going to be more connected
Yeah.
to the ground and the sky
Yeah.
and to each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. There's become such a disconnect. And
Yeah.
you know, through the pandemic and stuff, I think we saw a lot of that, right?
Oh,
There was
yeah.
such
Fear
disconnect
and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you know someone, you're more inclined to help them when they're in need, or you're more inclined to run to their aid if they're in trouble. Right. And so if we think about just how we relate to humans, just transfer that to places in nature, places in the world. Like I live right next to a regional park, so there's lots of hiking trails and picnic areas and things like that. I have a personal relationship with that land. I go there all the time. I walk there all the time. I really care about it. And if there was some sort of catastrophe on that land, or if there was a developer who wanted to build a bunch of apartments on that land, I would feel called to do something about it. But it's only because I have a personal relationship. You know, if that was someone's land in Florida where I've never been, have no relationship, I probably wouldn't care because I'm not connected.
That's
You
right.
know, so
Yeah.
that having connection really does change how we interact. It really does.
Yeah,
It does. And I love it because in the summer, like we've started camping, my husband and I, and so it's so nice. I mean, you have an RV.
Yeah.
I don't camp. I'm not that girl. But right. But to be out in nature and just to sit out there and to read and just to sometimes do nothing and just listen to
Yeah.
the around you and take in all the smells from the trees and I love that.
and bare feet,
Yeah.
feet on the ground.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's huge. Bare feet to me is like huge. You got to be there.
And
You gotta
Yeah.
get toes in.
I think if more people could connect to that,
Yeah.
it would be better. Because
I
right,
agree.
it's so grounding.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Would love to see you do a ritual sometime. Would that be
Yeah,
fun?
well, I'll have to keep you posted. There's a goddess called Inanna who's from Sumeria, like the Middle East area, and she's been coming up a lot. Like every once in a while a goddess will be like, "Hey Phoenix, I'm ready for you to give me a ritual." And so I feel like she's showing up, like I need to put something together for her. So I'll definitely let you all know when that happens.
yeah, that would
Love
be
that.
great. That would be
Yeah.
And maybe we can put it on Zoom too at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be cool.
Would that
Yeah.
be okay?
Yeah, that would be fun.
Love that. Just trying to make all these creative collaborations, right, as you're moving forward. And that's what I think we feel really geared towards and being
Yeah.
called to do is because that was my question to myself for sure. And I know you were thinking about like how do we be of service
Yeah.
and give this out? And it's like, oh, I know, we'll make these creative collaborations. And then jumped in and was like, let's do this.
Nice.
Yeah. So I mean, we were so great. I was so grateful when you agreed and jumped on that. I was like, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think too with us, we're also a Ojibwa, and so I think part of that is coming back to us too, reaching out for full moon services and things like that. So we're going to be doing a practice of that down the road here too.
Oh, that's cool.
So so anything you can bring to us too, knowledge.
Yeah.
Be wonderful.
Share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be great.
Yeah. Well, I love too that like witchcraft to me seems like it's very ancestral.
Yeah.
So I think we're pulling back in from all these different things. And one of the things that I did when I was away at this retreat was she did a witch wound class.
Yep.
We actually did like a guided imagery of going back to the times when they were actually burning witches at the stake.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting, heavy thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is it. And you know, as women, honestly, we carry that with us, right? Like we're even in this modern era where so much has changed and there's so much more opportunity, we're still living in a time of oppression. And I think, you know, a lot of the modern witchcraft movement is really based on Western European practices and ideals and ancestry. But what I'm seeing and what I think is so cool is that, especially the young folks who are getting involved, it's becoming bigger than that, and it's becoming more inclusive of a wider scope of the world. Because especially as Americans, like our culture is different than other parts of the world because we are a melting pot and we don't all have the same ancestral lands. And most of us isn't this land that we live on. That's not true for all of us, but it's true for a lot of us, you know? So I think it's very interesting that there's this widening of culture and this expansion of bringing in voices that are of people of color and people who have indigenous roots to this land and people who aren't necessarily Western European in their ancestry. I think it's really cool to watch the witchcraft movement grow and expand and invite more of that energy in. I think that's what witchcraft is all about. It's healing the wounds of the past and making space for a better future, right? And that's the time we're in now, is being more inclusive and being more expansive.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree with that. I have a kind of off question, but so what do you think
Yeah.
about the way witches are portrayed in movies, TV, those
Yeah.
things? Do you think that there's any of those that properly
Depicts what you are about?
Okay, so this is a really great question. I love anything with witches in it, like mean, scary, eating baby witches. I love all of that stuff. Like I love all of it. I have to admit it. I love all of it because there is a part of me, especially when I was 15 and angry at the world, there was a part of me that really liked the idea that it would scare people when I said I was a witch. There was a part of me that liked that. And then that went away. And now at 45, it's back again. Like there is a part of me that's like, yeah, you should be scared. I'm a badass, right? So so when I see witches portrayed in TV and movies and they're, you know, scary, I know that that's not the reality, right? Like I don't have supernatural powers. I can't snap and make a flame come out of my fingers. I would love that. I would love that.
Me too.
Right. But I know that that's not what my practice is actually about, you know? But there have been lots of movies or books, because I read a lot of fantasy books. It's my favorite genre. There's a lot of movies and books where there are kernels of truth. There are kernels of real practice. I know because I'm friends with a lot of other authors now, and there's been like actual high priestesses and pagan practitioners on the set of a lot of these newer movies and TV shows, like the show Sabrina the Teenage Witch that was on Netflix. They had a witch on the cast that was helping write the rituals that they did.
Nice.
So although it's not really true to my practice and it's not really, you know, I don't work with Satan, like that's not how my life works, but the rituals that they did were very familiar. I was like, oh, I see, there's some truth in this ritual. Yeah. So I can see the kernels of reality even within the fantasy of it.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah, it is really cool because I too, I'm like drawn. It says witch on it. I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
I'll get my hands on that.
Me too.
Oh, I have to get AMC so I can watch Mayfair Witches. Okay.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I read those books when I think I was like 20, and I was watching the TV series and I was thinking, I don't remember any of this. I just need to read those books.
That's exactly what I thought too. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe. So no, that's been great. So can you tell us people where they can find you? And
Yeah.
how to follow you and like you and all those kind of things?
Yeah, so I'm Phoenix LeFae, and that's LeFae. That often tricks people, but that's my handle on all the social medias. Phoenix LeFae. That's my website. My shop is Milk and Honey in Sebastopol, California, so you can also connect with me there. But yeah, and all the things I offer are on my website. If I'm attending events, it's on my website. I will be, there's a big witchy conference in Atlanta in July, and I will be there. I'm going to be presenting a couple workshops and a couple of rituals, so that'll be fun.
Good for
Nice,
you.
nice.
Yeah.
And do you still have your podcast that you take part in, or?
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of on an unofficial hiatus. My partner and I do a podcast called The Witches Next Door. And it's usually just him asking me questions and me ranting about the things that I feel passionate about. But it's been a while where we've gotten a little distracted by other parts of life and haven't recorded any podcasts in a while, but it'll be back.
Good,
Okay,
good.
excellent. And of course, your books, and do you have
Yeah.
more books in the works that you're thinking about doing, or?
I have a few things in the early planning stages, but nothing solid right now. I've had since 2017, I've had a book and a book and a book and a book, right? Like back to back to back. So this is the first time. I just had a book come out in April. And this is the first time I haven't had another project already started. And so I'm trying to let myself not be a workaholic.
Yeah, have a little bit of space in between.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
good
I'm not
to do
good at
that.
that. I'm not good
Yeah.
at that. So I'm working on breathing.
We talked about that too. We've been so busy.
Yeah.
You have to take those moments and just say, whoa. And let
Yeah.
your mind go at peace, right?
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, we burn out. Like I have a mentor who says you won't know you're burnt out until you're way past the line of burnout, and that has been proven true to me many times. And
Right.
I just work till my fingers fall off. I can't help myself. So I'm trying to not do that this time.
Trying to honor that space that's being created for you, right?
Yes, exactly.
Good for you.
Well, that's amazing. And we are so grateful that you could join us today. And yeah, hopefully we'll have you back and you can share some more of your rituals and things like that.
That'd be beautiful.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah,
be-
that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun chatting with you all.
Yeah.
Yeah, very fun. Thank you
So
very much.
thank you. And we will see everybody next week.